Hi, I'm with Ariane Roberts, who is in her third year as part of our administrative team and spent 4 or 5 years in the classroom in our family and consumer sciences department. So she'll bring two completely different perspectives than the previous math teachers that we have that we've spoken to. So, first question.
Mhm.
In recent memory, what has been the best professional development activity you have participated in, and what made this professional development different from others?
Um, I would say the best in most recent years, so that's kind of hard to remember back when I was teaching. So, most recent years comes from being a dean, and I would say last year we did a differentiated or different levels of options in regards to formative assessing. And what we did was we asked teachers to bring their best practice to the meeting that day, and it was one activity that they brought and they shared with the rest of the group. And I think it gave an opportunity for whether you were elective like my world to a core teacher and being able to look at all the different options of formative assessments and how you could maybe embed it into your classroom of different ideas. I think that's the downside of teaching is sometimes the downside is you get into your niche and you forget to look out into the world and what the different options are. And so it was being able to share with your colleagues that is in the same building and find hopefully a new idea that works best for you.
So, great. So, the next question isn't
Okay.
necessarily about professional development, but it leads to the third one.
Okay.
So, the second question is just kind of a general question. And in your view, what are the most essential practices or qualities to being a quality teacher?
Um, Looking back at my teaching, I think that if I could go back, I'd be a lot better teacher. And coming to admin world, I think it's taught me a lot. But I would say most important, no matter what grade. I know I've only worked with high schoolers, but no matter what the grade, is relationship building. And unless you have that relationship with your students, it's really hard to connect with them and able to teach your content. So that kind of then leads to the second one of content. You got to know your content. High school kids will call you out if you don't know your content. They're pretty smart cookies. But so having that relationship, able to interact with them, knowing your content, and then last but not least would be that formative assessment, and kind of back to that PD that we were just talking about of the formative assessment. If you can have great relationships, you can know your content, but if your kids aren't learning it and you don't know if your kids are learning it, then it's a waste of time. And you're in trouble. And I think that's the whole reason we go into education is because you want to teach them something. And I think that was my biggest thing is, are they walking away with some type of learning? And that's what I hope for.
So now knowing those three qualities that you've identified that make a quality teacher, relationship building, content, and formative assessment, do your professional development experiences align with those characteristics?
So I did talk about the formative assessment, and so we at Thunderidge has worked really hard on different types of assessment. Formative, interim. Last year we did performance-based tasks on summative kind of assessments. I don't think we ever do professional development, to be honest, on relationship building. And if you talk about content, where maybe that comes into account is depends on the year. We do job alikes, and coming from family and consumer sciences, there are 2 to 3 family and consumer science teachers in each of in majority of the high schools throughout the district. So job alike was really nice to get together as the 30 of us ish and talk about things that you do in your classroom and to bring new ideas. And depends on the year whether the district offers that. And I think that is an important thing. I think if you guys talk about your math department and being able to go next door to Ranchview and do your vertical, horizontal alignment type things, and so working with the content and being able to build my content, I don't think you can always learn more in your content. So sometimes in Java Likes we get the content, but I don't think we've ever done anything on relationship building. And you think that always comes pretty naturally to a teacher, but I think there's some things that as a new teacher maybe you can learn from a veteran teacher. And what works, every one of us has a different personality and every one of us connects to kids in different ways, but there might be some ways that I don't connect to some kids and I wish I knew how to, so maybe you could learn some of those from your coworkers as well.
So as a classroom teacher, I'm
Mhm.
expected to differentiate my instruction for
Yeah.
my class.
Okay.
Is it reasonable, and you have an interesting perspective here, is it reasonable to expect administrators to differentiate when they deliver professional development?
I think that's something that we learned quite a bit in the last few years. Um, that we have at Thunder Ridge have had quite a bit of turnover. In the last 2 years, I would say almost 60% of our staff is brand new, or at least within the first 2 or 3 years of teaching. So when you talk about, yes, I think it is important. So the last one we did on interim, we offered 3 different levels, so kind of beginner, middle, and advanced. So I think we talked about practitioner. I forgot what the different levels were called, but we offered 3 different options. The teachers self-identified where they thought they were at. I think you're truly good teachers who maybe mark themselves a little bit lower than where they should be, but I think you learn in any case, you learn a little bit from the different people you work with. But I would say yes, I think next year what we're also looking at is, as an administrator, where do I think my strengths are, or where do I think I can value add to the professional development, and so we can offer not just differentiated levels, but differentiated options of professional development, and teachers have the then choice to attend which of those different options are different. So from if I need technology support, or an MYP school, also I think we talked about restorative practices. So just choice into different options of what you want to take versus levels.
Great. And last question,
Okay.
and you can answer this both from your time as a teacher
Okay.
and then professional development as you transfer to the admin world. But to what degree of importance did professional development have in your growth as a teacher or as an administrator?
Growth as a teacher, to be honest, I call it kind of down the middle, truly depending on what the topic was. I don't know if I truly took it too serious as a teacher. Playing on my computer, doing other things. As an administrator, I we put a lot of time and effort into trying to come up with creative ideas and creative or supportive thoughts and supportive topics, or our missions for the year. And so we put quite a bit of time in, and so I wish that there was more value taken, or desire, or want to learn from the teachers. So I would hope that we would all say kind of that high end importance, but I don't know if everybody does. So I would guess it would probably depend on the topics, and I think maybe that's where we can reach out to the staff and try and figure out what they want professional development to be versus just kind of always what our mission is.
Going back to the end of your as a teacher. And you were putting together the ProStart program in our building, did you attend any professional development related to ProStart?
Yeah.
And was that more valuable, or?
Yeah, so I would say definitely. Being that it was a brand new program into the building, in the district, nobody had any knowledge. I went to some Johnson and Whale trainings. There was also my other colleague that taught ProStart went to, I think she attended 3 different levels out of state, specifically from ProStart itself. And I would say, out of anything, that was probably the most helpful in doing that, because you're talking about content. If you don't know your content, you can't teach the class, and you can learn those relationships, but if you don't know the content, high school kids will call you out.
Yeah, the theme that I've learned today is that when teachers get to choose and have ownership, the professional development is far more meaningful than if they're told they have to be somewhere. So, just wondering if you had the same experience with the ProStart.
I think the reason why I wanted to learn was because I knew I had to do it in the fall or that year. Is if I didn't know my content, if I didn't have some ownership into what I was learning, into that professional development, then my kids would fail. And maybe that's what it is that asking the teachers what they need and what they need to best support the kids and how they can better become teachers, then they'll have more of the buy-in and have the engagement and the desire to be there.
Great. Thanks. Appreciate your time.
Of course, Casey.